into a machine that had a cord attached to it that ran from a console of dials on the left side of the seat, and there was a lit oval window that peered into the ocean in front of her. Her shouting stopped when there was a thud on the hull, followed by the sound of metal in agony. The vessel capsized, the bolts in the hull shot out of their holes, water rushed in like a horde of invaders. Raven unbuckled from her seat and took up the air mask. There was a thud on the vessel and her head was knocked against the window. She blacked out. She reopened her eyes to the busy air bubbles that popped all over her face in the warm ocean and the horror of the debris from the submarine that sank with her. She tried to swim, but a weight was on her leg. She reached down to the left and felt a sharp metallic object that protruded her leg. She stretched back up, snatching at the water above her. It was no use, she was drowning and her only hope was to remain calm. The woods behind her apartment on the planet Cunup was all Raven thought about. Althazar heard her heartbeat gradually lessen and her body became slack. Then he made his intrusion into her imaginary landscape known by standing next to a tree. Her projection of herself in her thoughts resembled a phantasm. It was fuzzy and floated. "You are still there," said Althazar to get her attention. "I am a friend if you will allow me, and I came for you," Raven said, and her phantasm form focused on him. "A friend? Sync with my mind fully, let me see your world," she said. "Touch my hand," Althazar said. He extended his hand. She leaned forward and came in contact with it. Her presence felt warm, and then he snatched her, pulling her entirely into the darkness that he lived in. Althazar and Raven now shared his mind, and he knew she felt the sensation of being trapped inside of a box. For a moment he heard a murmur from Raven. She felt that she had stupidly switched bodies with him, then she realized what had actually occurred. "I have crossed over into your mind." "Push against the walls," said Raven in a controlled voice. "I have done that a billion times, it does not work," said Althazar. "Then you will stay like this forever. Do you want that? Or do you want freedom?" "I want my freedom." "Push the walls with all your heart, I will too. Our combined minds have the potential of knocking down the prison, and then we can be free." He flinched, then concentrated on pushing back the walls of the prison. "Nothing is happening," said Althazar. "Push harder." "See yourself being free," said Raven. Althazar exerted himself and sensed Raven matched him until the prison walls fell. Raven disappeared from Althazar's mind and he grew out of the confinement to the magnitude of his real size. He scanned for Raven's mind and located a faint presence from her on the telepathic wave. He swam up and saw her body in the debris of the vessel. He hooked her onto one of his four horns, taking her to the surface. He shape-shifted into his human form and brought Raven into his arms. He pumped her chest and she vomited, then he blew air into her nostrils. She coughed. "You have a chance of surviving," he told her. She closed her eyes and went limp in his arms. Her blood seeped onto him from the multiple wounds on her body. He estimated that she would be dead without immediate medical attention, but he could help her mentally. He channeled into her mind the music that he remembered from his mother's flute. It drilled down into her subconsciousness and embedded itself, the soft melody hooking her spirit and telling it not to give up. A hurricane created from his emotional unsteadiness rumbled around him, and he was in the calm center of the storm's eye. In the midst of the storm he heard various human thoughts, all in panic. He placed Raven on his back and reverted to a sea dragon. He went in the opposite direction of the humans and parted his way through the storm. Chapter 3 Althazar wanted answers. He sensed the sailboat in the distance and he placed the woman in the sea while he dived underneath it. He nudged the woman closer to the sailboat until he heard the occupants raise an alarm. The occupants, who were two men, came for the woman. Althazar receded into the sea to avoid detection. The men took the woman into the sailboat and Althazar listened telepathically to the men's thoughts. "We have to get the cocaine to port and this woman will slow us down," thought one man. "She is like a mermaid from in the movies, but how did she get so many cuts, and look at her leg," thought the other man. The men bandaged the woman's wounds and placed Raven in the stateroom. She remained unconscious and the first man believed it was a mistake to have rescued her. The second man looked after her for hours until he was confronted by the first man. There were no radio messages for a downed boat as yet, but there was a freak hurricane in the Atlantic. The Coast Guards or the U.S. cruisers may be looking for her boat, said the first man. So what? We are transporting cocaine. Yes, I know that. We are not handing her over to the authorities if that is your concern. Then what are we to do with her? Have fun with her. Althazar shot up from the sea and transformed into a man. He climbed up the ladder at the stern of the sailboat and ran at the men who were on the deck. He attacked them viciously. One man drew a weapon and turned it on Althazar. Bang! Bang! Althazar felt a burning sensation at his side, but he continued to smash his fists into the two men until they stopped yelling and laid still on the deck. He tossed their bodies overboard with contempt for all the vile thoughts that the men had for Raven. He went into the stateroom and stood over her. "Tell me your story," he said, and then he became a voyeur into her mind and he saw her recent experiences. Raven detested waking up in the camp for survivors of the H2 plague because her brain was like a maelstrom pulling in all the thoughts of her neighbors, all at once. Her fellow survivors complained about their tents, the food, the laws, and wasting away of what time they had before age 50 arrived when they would die without the aid of the plague. "I hate this brain buster," said Raven, and wrapped the pillow around her head, knowing that it would not alleviate the pain that was caused by the electrical alpha waves that sentient beings unknowingly emitted from their brains, striking an unguarded psi operator, and the abnormal number of veins in Raven's head that gave her the telepathy were overrun with blood and it made her head feel swollen. In 5 to 6 minutes the ordeal had finished. She did not tell anyone in the camp that she was a psi operator, since that brewed suspicion about invasion of privacy, although she only looked into the neighbors' thoughts when she felt utterly miserable from being alone in her tent. The law in the camp banned physical interaction. Only the soldiers and the medical staff in hazard suits met with the people to verify that they were still alive or infected with the H2 plague. Air drones delivered food packets to the tents and Raven had no choice but to take the same meal every day. The camp was devoid of vegetation or animals, no songbirds to serenade her or plants to care for. Outside of her tent were 100 blue tents that contained the same stove and sleeping mat that were in hers. She had seen this from poking around the brain waves of her neighbors. She was 25 years old. Her normal life and work were taken away in the short 5 years that the H2 plague existed. She believed that her life on Cunup's second habitable moon would spare her from the plague that broke out on the home planet. That was a fallacy. The army came to her psi operator's only apartment complex and burnt an infected section down. Raven was one of the 5 tenants that passed the infection test. The rest of the tenants were executed by the explosive capsules that psi operators have inserted into their heads as infants, and the bodies were incinerated on site. The humans were to blame was the gossip that grew in Raven's survivor camp. The law banned physical interaction, but it did not ban talking, and so conversations went on from the tent doorways amongst the neighbors. Raven stayed away from such interactions. What did she know about the humans anyway, other than they were allowed into Cunup by the Cosmonaut Academy sect? Occasionally someone called to her, "You inside of Tent H, come out and chat with us." This was ignored until the person gave up. Raven did not like Cunupians as much as she adored the animals. She loved the 20 feet tall reptiles, the predatory fishes and the critters that she once took care of at the animal sanctuary. They were her friends and she missed them. The H2 plague took them away from her. Raven started her mornings with 20 slow push-ups, then did deep stretches followed by breathing exercises, and the rest of the day she worked on her meditation skills to master her telepathy, her body, and the little telekinesis that she was capable of. Her routine was interrupted by the familiar sound of an army vehicle outside of her tent. "Raven, come out," barked a soldier. She obeyed, but there was a difference on this occasion because she was told to get into the vehicle immediately. She scanned the soldier's alpha brain waves and found that he was ordered to take her to the airfield where a helicopter waited for her. He did not know the reason that she was chosen or her destination. A medic took a sample of saliva from Raven's mouth to test for the H2 plague. The sample was inserted into a kit and the machine said that Raven was clean, which pleased the medic, so she gave Raven a hazard suit to put on in the vehicle. The military helicopter flew Raven from the camp to over the capital city of Cunup. 80% of the city was incinerated and walled off to keep the H2 plague from rampaging further. Then the aircraft went out to the ocean towards the horizon, where there was a ring of 8 military ships that surrounded a small island city that was shaped like a crescent. The pilot told her that it was the Cosmonaut Academy. She scanned his mind and learnt that the military had taken control of the island under the behest of the Cunupian government. There were 5 colossal statues of robed Cunupians and murals of the universe that walled the city. A constant hum of a machine was the final hallmark of the city when she arrived on it. The hum, like a swarm of insects, was everywhere. She asked a soldier about the noise and he said that it came from the machine that kept open the wormhole bridge between Earth and Cunup. The incubator center where she was raised until age 7 taught her that Cunup orbited the Sun in a different dimension to the rest of the solar system, with Earth being the only accessible planet from Cunup. Digital billboards on the faces of buildings depicted achievements of the Cosmonaut Academy founders: the discovery of an ancestor's journal in a cave, the watchtower aimed at Earth that was stumbled upon, the unearthed warehouse of Tesseract boxes, the remains of the processor for the first incubator center retrieved from the sea, the round table meeting of the founders where they deduced that either beings migrated from Earth to Cunup or vice versa over a time-space bridge, the construction of the quantum chamber, the transmission to Earth of the schematics for a machine to open a wormhole bridge to Cunup, and the 5 Cunupians who first traveled to Earth. Raven never knew those events occurred and was intrigued by the wormhole bridge. Hua, the leader of the Cosmonaut sect, greeted her at the entrance of his office. His face was ceremonially painted with dark circles around the eyes. Raven assumed that he neared 50 years of age. "I want to do something for you," he said. "What?" asked Raven. He pointed a clicker at her head. "I can deactivate the explosive in your skull permanently," Hua said. "How is that possible? Only the military can do that." The Psi operators who became cosmonauts were granted the right to have the explosive deactivated as long as they never returned to Cunupian society. They lived at the Cosmonaut Academy until they died. "Sorry, I must decline the offer because I want to return to society," said Raven. "Very well, come inside my office," said Hua. The office was an observatory with a 25 feet tall telescope that was pointed at the universe. "This city absorbs the uranium from the ocean waves, which is converted into atomic power for the quantum chamber that opens the bridge between Cunup and Earth," he said while giving her a tour of the observatory. He was a tired soul and worn down due to the stress the government placed him under, sensed Raven. "You are going to Earth in 6 months as ordered by the Cunup government. We will train you in that time," said Hua. Earth equaled escape to Raven, but she downplayed the excitement. "I understand," she said calmly to Hua. Earth, she thought, and an image of a bright star in the evening sky came to her mind. In the woods behind her old apartment complex she stared for hours as an 8-year-old child at the heavens in the night, and the brightest planet was that of Earth. The incubator center taught her that Earth's population was less developed, yet as far as Raven was concerned, anywhere that did not have the H2 plague was a paradise. "I can see what you are thinking," said Hua. "Excuse me," said Raven. "You thought about defecting to Earth if given the chance?" "Not in that context. What would you do on Earth with the time you have remaining to live if you did defect?" "I don't know, survive I guess. There are several accords between Earth and Cunup. One of the accords is that ordinary humans are to remain oblivious to the existence of Cunup. The Earth governments go out of their way to ensure that the accord is enforced. If you defect, the Earth governments will imprison you." "Are you trying to intimidate me?" asked Raven. "Yes. A lot of lives are depending on the success of your mission to Earth, and it cannot be jeopardized by any selfish act on your part." "What exactly will be my mission?" asked Raven. "You will find out on Earth. Your task now is to become a cosmonaut." "Will the wormhole be closed should Cunupians die out?" asked Raven. "Yes. If your mission on Earth fails, then the wormhole will be closed on both ends." "Did the humans bring the H2 plague?" "No, because they were too busy trying to figure out the reason Cunup is invisible to the rest of the solar system. There should be only anomalies and electromagnetic occurrences where Cunup is located, but there aren't. The humans have launched multiple probes on their end and they have discovered nothing.